Okay, Matt, I'm going to review your golf swing. So I really think we're at the point now where this little bit of lag is going to have to get into it. You know, I think you got a lot of motions about the swing, which are good and solid and on plane, and the good direction, good matchup of your body. You do probably stretch it a little further back here than we have to. I mean, I think it would be better off there and call that the end of the deal, because that extra little bit you go. I mean, put it this way, the worst combination is a long backswing with an early release. The shorter the backswing, the better chance you have getting to the ball a little bit later, which is always what you're trying to do. You have to remember that your bad shots are when you get there early. So I want to go shorter there. It is closed at the top. I didn't deal a lot with that this week, but we should look at it going forward. And again, the running ahead, you know, that's an issue that is left over, and that's how you've figured out how to be a 5. Because if you release the club quite early, you have to run ahead. So your goal, I think, with the let's see this thing's got minutes. Is to set the wrist a little bit earlier, make this a little shorter, and hold that a little longer. So this is what I would say. First of all, your path is into out. Okay. Your plane is slightly under. Your release is early. Moderate to severely early. And one thing that we know is that there's some things that would fit in that picture and other things that won't. So I really think that there's two things we could do. Set the wrist earlier. Okay, this is pretty wide and a little laid off here at this point. So let's set the wrist earlier. Let's set the club a little more vertical. Now the good work you've done is in your transition. This is not nearly as steep as it was. So it's always been for you flat going back and steep down and early, and therefore you run ahead. So what I'm trying to do is, if we can reverse the order and keep working toward getting the club set earlier, flattening it in transition, and holding the angle longer. That's the whole ball of wax. Everything else that you see here will take care of itself to some degree once that kicks in for us. I mean, your release is not, as early. You have made a little progress along that direction, but for as long as you play golf, that is always going to be something that you could work on. You and 95% of the rest of the golfing world. It just doesn't seem normal. I'm going to talk about these positions in a minute. But it doesn't seem normal to, not swing the club head at the ball. That seems like the most natural thing in the world. And when you do, you're early. You have to hold that back a little bit. See, I'd say at this point where you've done some work in your studio there, I'd say at that point you are holding it later. Then it begins to flip. So one is this all dovetails, right? One meshes with the other. We get you set a little bit earlier, get you a little shorter going back, get you a lot later coming into the ball, which should keep you a little bit more behind the ball and then allow you to keep your posture a little bit better. By that I mean not what they call lower body extension or forward. The right heel doesn't have to come off so it's all based on that real early release, really. The real early release makes you move forward to not hit it fat. The move forward, what triggers the move forward is that lifting of your right heel early and out toward the ball. What's known as lower body extension, or what I call humping the ball, because you have to get like a way of not hitting behind it with the early release that you tend to have. So let's stay on the ball. Let's set the wrist a little bit earlier. Get out of that. Let's have it set, through here by now. If you set it a little bit earlier and say, I'm done now, that would be great. This face is closed only because there's not enough set. The way I see the golf swing, your golf swing. If there was a little more set of the wrist and this club was a little more vertical, I don't think it would be that closed. I mean, this club face is looking pretty much straight up at the sky, so that is kind of closed. And that's another reason for that hook. See, the reason I want to get the hook out of there, every time your ball does that, even probably to a little bit, you're going to drift off this way with your aim. Your ball position goes back. You're going to be a little bit earlier to hit it. It just sets off everything in a vicious cycle for you. And these are all objectives that will lead to more lag, more on plane, and the things that we're trying to do. So when you get down to the ball, we could have you bottom out in front of it more often. So here comes the right heel coming up early. Now you're leaving your posture position. Like this. And that's pretty typical of someone, especially a lower handicap golfer. That's pretty typical of someone who's an early releaser. To raise the handle like that, to hump with the lower body, to get off of that and to run ahead of it is all ways of dealing with the early release. You take a high handicap golfer, for example, they just release it. They just throw it into the ground. But you guys figure a way to get the club on it more often than not. By correcting a fault with a fault, essentially. So that's what we're going to do. Wrist set earlier. I think everything's good with the grip. The posture is very good. Try setting the wrist earlier, staying on the ball, making that a little bit shorter. Okay. Try to hold, and turn. Put an aim stick back here in the ground mat. See if you can keep your butt against it. You're going to keep this down a little bit longer. That'll help you not run the head of the ball so far. And just hold the angle and keep exiting to the left. I want to get this club out of the picture here a little bit earlier, a little more to the left. Your uncle is guilty of that too. A lot of straight line motion and not enough rotation with the body through and keeping the angle. This is releasing the club head down at it a little bit. So that's what to do. I think we've made some progress, and I think we're getting close. But just keep working on the lag. I think the way everything else is kicked in for you with being able to play with that early of a release, if you can just keep working lag, the other things, staying behind it, and getting more through it and getting left with your path, will kick in too. Do not set up right. Do everything you can to not set up right. Aim open, aim square or open, if anything. Okay, there you go. Enjoy the week with your group.